Stand by SOT1.
Standing.
10 seconds. Ready, rolling. Ready, SOT1.
Ready.
In 4, 3, 2, 1. Roll in.
From legendary Uncle Studios in beautiful Southern California, welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters, the central location for you employees, you employers, and of course we haven't forgotten about you damn independent contractors. And now, here's this week's edition of Work Comp Matters. It's October 25th, 2021, 12 noon straight up. Welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters. We are brought to you by the workcompcentral.com. If you want the number one location for workers' compensation in both California and around the United States, check out the workcompcentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer. And if you want to pick up their services, I have them. You should too. It's only $1 a day. Work Comp Matters is part of the mancavepodcasting.com empire. If you want to do your own podcast, all you have to do is talk. 818-357-4120. Anywhere in the world, all you need is a smartphone and or a computer. We take care of all the rest. We stream it live for you. We produce it, direct it, put it in the cloud, and manage it forever, all for one small fee. That's mancavepodcasting.com. 818-357-4120. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Steve Appel. I'm joined by the madman across the water, the socialist voice of reason, Mr. John Scalia. Well, number one story, of course, is the horrific accidental shooting by Alec Baldwin on the Santa Fe, New Mexico set of the film Rust, where Helena Hutchins was killed and director Joel Souza was wounded. What we know is that Alec Baldwin was given a gun. The gun went off when he was pointing it in the direction of the director and the cinema photographer. The gun apparently was one of 3 on the film's armor. That's the person who is responsible for the safe chain of custody of weapons on the set. The armor apparently had just been brought onto the set within 24 to 48 hours of the incident happening. Apparently, crew members walked off the set the day of and possibly the day before the incident happened, due not only to safety concerns, but also gun safety concerns. It's unclear how many rounds were fired. No immediate charges were filed, and the sheriff's spokesman Juan Rios said Baldwin was permitted to travel. Alec Baldwin was reportedly very careful with firearms on the set of Rust prior to the accidental shooting. Reed Russell, a camera operator who was working on the film set the day of the incident, told detectives in a newly released affidavit that Baldwin was very careful when it came to the use of prop firearms while filming prior to the incident. He even cited a specific incident. Further details are emerging even as we're talking on the show right now. And obviously, filming has stopped. A similar incident occurred to Brandon Lee when a prop gun went off and killed him. And of course, the most infamous incident during my lifetime was during the filming of The Twilight Zone almost 40 years ago, when Vic Morrow was decapitated and 2 children were killed when a helicopter on the set malfunctioned. Now, I want to follow the money and the potential jurisdiction for a moment, because you can go to other podcasts, you can go to other information. And what I'm about to tell you is public information. I had to do a little bit of searching for it, but you're probably not going to hear this, at least not now. And this has to do with what is really of interest to you California employees, employers, and of course, we haven't forgotten about you independent contractors. And by the way, I do not know if the cinema photographer was an employee or an independent contractor, but here we go. In 2017, Alec Baldwin's production company, El Dorado Pictures, signed a first look deal at the movie Rust with ABC Studios, which is owned by the Walt Disney Company. El Dorado Pictures is located in Los Angeles and develops scripted and unscripted projects under the ABC Studios banner. The production was financed by Bondit Media Capital in Santa Monica and also in coordination with CAA Media Finance for the sales rights, who are also located in Los Angeles, and in coordination with the Highland Film Group, who is also in Los Angeles. Last but not least, of course, ABC Studios in Los Angeles is owned by the Walt Disney Company, which is in Orange County, okay? Now, you're probably not going to hear that anywhere else now. It took me some digging in multiple sites, but you can trust me. All the information I just gave you is very accurate. Now, John's going to comment. Hang on. So it appears clear to me that with the exception of negligence, and clearly there was negligence here because everything that has come out says safety was compromised. So right now, right there, you've got a serious and willful claim. But potentially, this very well could fall under California workers' compensation. And of course, death claims in California workers' compensation are limited, like maximum $300,000 at most. However, if the cinema photographer was an independent contractor, then of course you're dealing with unlawful death, and that could go into 7 or 8 figures because then it goes out of exclusive remedy and into the civil arena. Okay, so that's what I have to report. I'm now going to go to John Scalia, and I'm sure he has his own thoughts, and he may or may not want to comment on what I just said.
Well, I think it's interesting. What you've done is you've shown. Excuse me. What you've done is you've shown a clear nexus to California, so that they could take jurisdiction. Obviously, the work comp probably shouldn't be an issue. I mean, the jurisdiction is probably clear there. The interesting thing is, though, as you pointed out, there could be a serious and willful violation here. There could be what we call 132A in the biz. You know, that the conduct was so egregious that it goes beyond ordinary negligence. And in that instance, if the conduct is really outrageous, the courts have allowed the exclusive jurisdiction to disappear. They've allowed suits to go from the work comp arena, where, as you point out, it would be limited to $300,000, to the civil arena, where basically it wouldn't be limited. So that's also a possibility, and I think it's a good one. The other thing is that, generally speaking, I would say between having a district attorney in Santa Fe, New Mexico prosecute and one in LA, I would ordinarily, be in favor of the LA prosecutor. But the LA DA office has botched so many high-profile prosecutions that I'm reluctant to say that. The Vic Morrow case that you pointed out, they lost. I mean, they went to trial against him and they lost, or against the safety, whoever it was. So the point is that they can lose anything because it's so political that the DA in charge is reluctant to refer the case to some really hotshot lawyer because they're afraid that the hotshot lawyer will then take the job. Okay, so you're always about this balancing act. If you give one of your young hotshots the job, then he could be the next DA, and if you're the DA, you don't want that. So so you get a career prosecutor who ain't going anywhere and is not nearly as good. So I don't know. I mean, it's a toss-up who you want prosecuting it. Personally, anybody like Alec Baldwin, the studios, and all the people you mentioned, they're going to afford so many high-priced lawyers that they'll be able to run rings around any DA anywhere.
And I would hope that with all of the entities I mentioned, that they are insured up the gazoo. So there you go. John, you may have misspoke. I absolutely agree with you. And I think all of the evidence does point to a serious and willful, both OSHA as well as work comp. But you mentioned 132A. I don't know if you intended to really say that, but there's no 132A here.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah, just a misspoke. No problem. Go ahead. But there is insurance also based on the chain and jurisdiction. There are some deep pockets. I've heard people out of the know that really have not been in workers' compensation. This person should be sued. That person should be sued. Everybody's going to be sued. And then through discovery and through the courts and motions to dismiss and subpoenas and depositions, they're going to dismiss the parties that do not have liability, shall we say. But they're going to try and keep those deep pockets in as long as possible. Go ahead, John.
And there's a really interesting issue here, which came up once before, because as you know, I represented studios in my various incarnations. And a lot of them have their payroll through cast and crew, as you know.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. Please continue.
Yeah, and cast and crew does the entire payroll. Well, in workers' compensation, the law says whoever's paying you is the employer. Okay, so the question is cast and crew the employer or whatever production company they have? Generally, they've been. I remember we had a really touchy issue once when one of the guys who used to work on the defense side, representing a studio, went to the applicant side. Okay, and they tried to get him to stop representing applicants on the basis of, he knew too much about the inner workings. And he said, really? He said, well, if that happens, guess what? I'm going to join the production company as the employer. And all this nice arrangement you have about insulating them from legal liability is going to collapse like a house of cards. We made sure it never got to a decision for obvious reasons. Okay, but that's going to be an issue here too.
And just as a keepsake, I worked upstairs from Cast and Crew for a couple of years. And yes, you're right. Generally speaking, Cast and Crew is a payroll company. I represent, or I handled a lot of stuntmen, stuntwomen cases that Cast and Crew did payroll, taxes, handled the workers' comp and all of that. So it could come down to Cast and Crew, depending on who is doing payroll for the film. But John, as you well know, in workers' comp, it's going to come down to who has control.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So anyways, that's the latest update on Rust. We'll keep you updated, probably a follow-up this Friday. My name's Steve Appel. You're dialed into Work Comp Matters. We're brought to you by the workcompcentral.com. If you want the #1 location for workers' compensation in both California and around the United States, check out the workcompcentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer. And if you want to pick up their services only $1 a day, Work Comp Matters is part of the mancavepodcasting.com empire. 818-357-4120. If you want to do your own podcast, all you have to do is talk anywhere in the world. That's true. All you need is a smartphone and or a computer. You just talk. We take care of everything else. Direction, production, live stream, and putting it into the cloud forever and managing it forever. And it's all for one low price. And now here's your Work Comp Matter news.
California isn't testing state workers for COVID as required, from the LA Times. 3 months after Governor Gavin Newsom required state workers to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 or undergo weekly testing, his pledge the California government would lead by example has not been fulfilled. Many public agencies face low vaccination rates, and most state-run workplaces have failed to test unvaccinated employees. At the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, for example, fewer than a third of employees have provided proof they are fully vaccinated, while 6,700 employees are either not vaccinated or have declined to provide their status. CAL FIRE said it is testing just 75 employees. The Department of Motor Vehicles, where 59% of employees are fully vaccinated, has about 3,600 unvaccinated staffers working in offices across the state who are required to be tested weekly, but only 411 of them are being tested, a DMV spokesman said. So this goes on and on. The point is, what is going on here? Is Governor Newsom afraid to antagonize the big state employees union? This is a total disregard for the health of the people of the state of California. And I didn't realize we had so many lunatics who refused to be vaccinated regardless, but they should be tested.
And then starting next month, I believe it's October 4, at least here in Los Angeles County, you're not allowed to enter any public building unless you're vaccinated and or proof of a COVID test and or masked. And up until this point, my understanding is that if me or you as a private citizen go somewhere and you don't wear your mask, you then have liability. But when these new edicts or mandates come into effect, it's going to be the person running the business, the owner of the building, who is going to be criminally responsible if they allow customers to come in without a vax passport, without a negative COVID test, and or without a mask. And that's Los Angeles County, any public buildings starting October 4th. John, if you thought this story was bad about the governmental employees, who the heck is going to enforce come October 4? Go ahead.
Obviously. I mean, they're just making these, they're saying all these great things, but nobody's serious about doing it. I mean,
Yeah, are the COVID police going to come and start ticketing businesses for not checking vax passports? It's a serious question. But anyways, I've got the next story. Federal health regulators said Friday that kid-sized doses of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine appear highly effective at preventing symptomatic infections in elementary school children and cause no unexpected safety issues as the United States weighs beginning vaccinations in youngsters. The Food and Drug Administration posted its analysis of Pfizer's data ahead of public meeting this coming week to debate whether the shots are ready for the nation's roughly 28 million children aged 5 to 11. The agency will ask a panel of outside vaccine experts to vote on that question. So we've got about 330 million people in the United States, and about 10% of them apparently are 5 to 11 years old. John?
California's veterans forced to leave homes to seek aid in dying. They served the nation on distant and often hostile shores, putting their bodies and minds in harm's way for their country. Now, in the twilight of their lives, the residents of Napa County's Yountville Veterans Home are asking for the option to end their lives if they are terminally ill, in peace, at home, in their own bed. The 625 residents and their spouses are denied access to the state's aid in dying law. A group representing residents of the home went to court to try to change that. Life-ending medication is also off limits to the other 2,000 aging and disabled veterans and spouses at the state's facilities in Fresno, Barstow, Redding, and other cities. That's because California's End-of-Life Option Act conflicts with federal law. So the state's Veterans Agency bans it, fearing the loss of millions of dollars in federal funding. Well, I'm just going to say, I say to people here in Europe when they ask me why I came here, I said, if California were its own country, I might not have ever left. And this is a perfect example of that. California has obviously compassionate, intelligent legislation, and because a large portion of the country is run by fascists, they've decided rather than to risk losing millions of dollars, they're going to go along with the fascists and not give the relief to the veterans who put their lives on the line, and they want to end it in dignity in their own bed. I mean, it's disgraceful.
This story is from CNN, How to Talk to Your Younger Kids About the COVID-19 Vaccine. An 11-year-old girl was petrified, her word, of needles, so much that she didn't want to talk about it with me. She couldn't talk about it without becoming visibly upset. Her heart raced, her breathing became rapid, and her stomach hurt when she tried to answer my questions. So we backed up. We started from the beginning. I first had her look at cartoon images of children getting vaccines. When I asked her how it felt to do that, she rolled her eyes and reminded me that it wasn't real. Next, I had her look at photos of medical needles. She reported that she didn't like the pictures, but she couldn't handle looking at them. You know what? When I was younger, I just turned my head. You got to get the shot. I would cry. I would get the shot, and boom, it's done. There you go.
California rejected 6% of medical exemptions for school vaccinations in this year, in a hint to fight ahead. As California moves toward requiring all students to be inoculated against COVID-19, state officials have revoked more than 180 medical exemptions granted to families for other required school vaccinations since the start of the year. The revocations, which reflect a tension that may grow in coming years, came under a new law that seeks to crack down on suspected abuse in the process for foregoing the immunizations that every California student must get. The California Department of Public Health told the Chronicle that as of early October, it had revoked 182 medical exemptions through a new administrative review process because they did not meet federal guidelines for immunization practices, representing nearly 6% of the 3,136 exemptions requests the department had reviewed. As you know, from the beginning of this whole thing, I have said that there's no major religion that says you can't be vaccinated, as far as I know. And I don't understand, these people are just outliers. They're just individuals who probably believe that, they're going to get injected with some weird substance that has no basis in science, no basis in any main religious faith. And why they're requesting exemptions is beyond me. They should be denied, and it's ridiculous that only 6% are denied, because I'd suspect at a minimum, half of them are bogus anyway.
Thank you for that, John. This is from the Los Angeles Times. Should I mix and match my COVID-19 booster shot? Topping up, I think that should say topping off, but topping up your protection against severe COVID-19 while avoiding the risk of rare vaccination side effects should not be rocket science. But just ask the experts who advised federal regulators to authorize additional shots. There's no simple formula to guide Americans' decisions about booster shots. Whether you should get a booster shot and which one you should get depends on who you are, what medical vulnerabilities you have, and what vaccines you got first. The people you live with or what kind of work you do might also influence your choice. This is where science, the science is there. It appears clear that getting a booster shot is going to make it much more difficult, if not impossible, to be hospitalized or have severe side effects if you were to get COVID-19. But which booster should you get, and should you mix and match, and how you mix and match, and when you mix and match? The science is just not that developed yet. John, have you been, I know you had 2 shots. Have you been offered a booster? You going to get a booster?
I would probably get it, but as far as I know, Germany isn't doing it yet. We will do it if the science says it's valuable, and I will probably get it. But other than that, no, I have no idea whether we're going to do it or not.
So the scuttlebutt in Germany is that either they can't get the boosters yet, or they can get them, but they're not sure if they should recommend them.
Yeah, number 2, we've got all.
Gotcha.
Germany has never lacked, as I've said repeatedly during this whole pandemic. We have like 23,000 intensive care beds in Germany, which is way more than anybody per capita. And even during the worst time of the pandemic in Germany, our hospital resources were not strained.
All right, cool.
Certain California prison guards must be vaccinated. A judge in California ruled Friday that state prison guards who work in and around facilities' healthcare settings must be vaccinated against the coronavirus. Kern County Superior Judge Bernard Barman's ruling does not extend to all state prison employees, including guards who work in other settings. The State Department of Public Health in August had ordered the guards, as well as other prison and jail employees who work in correctional healthcare settings, to get vaccinated. Well, once again, this is an example of how the people who allegedly enforce the law in your state think they're above the law and think that the law only applies to you and me and not them. Yeah, Steve.
Here's an example of stupidity in my last story from the Los Angeles Times. Man is arrested after driving into vaccine mandate protesters in Palmdale. A 64-year-old man was arrested Saturday after he drove his Jeep Wrangler into a crowd of people protesting vaccine mandates in Palmdale, injuring one woman, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department officials said. A witness stated a man disagreed with the protest, entered his vehicle, and intentionally drove toward the protesters. Deputy Trina Schrader said in a statement Sunday. The suspect then drove away westbound and out of view. So apparently it's not only a hit and run. Apparently it's not only vehicular assault, but you're going to do something stupid. People are allowed to have peaceful protests, and just because you disagree with them does not justify you driving your car into a crowd. And they should get him, and they should hang him up by his bootstraps. Throw him in jail, I say. That's my last story, John. You got one left with 3 minutes.
People vaccinated against COVID-19 less likely to die from any cause, the study finds. Now, I couldn't resist reading that headline, because think about it for a minute. What it says is you're less likely to die from any cause. That's impossible. You're going to die from some cause, so you can't be less likely to die from any cause. You know, I was a news editor in my college newspaper, and I would occasionally write heads. I mean, doesn't anybody look at these things and decide how far?
Yeah, that one probably slipped from the cracks. I'm sure what they meant was some type of infectious disease or virus, but it doesn't say that.
No, it doesn't. And if you're a news editor, you're supposed to read what it says. And what it says is patently absurd. So what the article goes on, it's from CNN. People who got COVID-19 vaccines were not only less likely to die from the virus, but here's the main part of the article, but they were less likely to die from any cause over the following months, researchers reported Friday. Okay. I mean, really? The research team was trying to demonstrate that the 3 authorized COVID-19 vaccines are safe, and they say their findings clearly demonstrate that. Okay, it makes them happy, but no offense, but this is kind of like should be in Logic 101, which is not required. It's not a required course for anybody in America because logic is not required in America.
Or journalism 101, or news reporting 101.
Yeah. Well, actually, we had a regular student newspaper. We didn't have a journalism department, interestingly enough. And we put out a paper in the student body at the time of 3,200. We put out an 8-page newspaper once a week. And sometimes special editions, too. There was a lot of work.
We put out a newspaper. It was probably 6 or 8 pages. And we also had a school radio station.
Yeah, we did, too. And we only had 3,200 students,
You also had a nuclear power plant there at UCLA.
No, I'm talking about Santa Clara, my undergraduate school.
Oh, got it. Okay, cool. Good. Okay, well, that's it. Show's over. I want to thank Scott Walton of Legendary Uncle's Studio. I want to thank John Scalia in Munich, Germany, all the good people back at the workcompcentral.com, and everybody who partners with me at mancavepodcasting.com. My name's Steve Appel. We'll see you again Friday, 12 noon live for another edition of Work Comp Matters. Bye, everyone.